Welcome to Meeting Mesabi. My name is Caesar, and today we're here with Pete Kero, who was the visionary behind the reclaiming of the Redhead Mountainbike Park, and also the author of Minescapes, Reclaiming, what's the title again?
Reclaiming Minnesota's Minelands.
And then we're also here with Benji Neff, director of mountain sports at Giants Ridge, and he also deals with a lot of trail maintenance over there. So thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Much appreciated.
So, start off with Pete. Talking about the Redhead Mountainbike Park, how many hoops did you have to jump through when you were, putting that together?
More than fingers and toes can count.
That could be its own podcast in and of itself.
All right. So we'll just say there were hoops. It took about 12 to 13 years to develop the park, from the time when it was first conceived to eventually when it opened to the public, or when we went through our soft opening. And those included all sorts of things, from raising millions of dollars to changing the state law around mine pit fencing legislation, to just rallying people around the idea. It was a kind of novel idea at the time when it was proposed. Even when we started working on it, it was before Cuyuna came on the scene. And so the idea of a destination mountain bike park in northeast Minnesota sounded pretty foreign to a lot of people. Like, oh, maybe that's, in Utah or California, you could do something like that. But doing it here was a new idea that took a while for people to rally around. But eventually they did. And we built support sort of one by one, and our public agencies went to bat for us, and the legislators changed the law, and the city of Chisholm stepped up to own the park, and Minnesota Discovery Center as an operating partner, and Iron Range Off-Road Cyclists as a mountain bike club grew up around the park to provide the maintenance. So the community embraced it over time to allow us to open it and to allow it to thrive like it is today.
Yeah, because looking at it now, so much work has gone into it, but I didn't even realize that it was like in the works before Cuyuna was even a thing. Yeah. So this is like a long running project.
It was a journey for sure. Yeah, and I talk about that a little bit in the book. Actually, the sixth chapter of the book is about the story of Redhead Mountainbike Park, from idea inception through its grand opening.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I kind of am drawn into. I like seeing stuff that's like repurposed and like built into something new. So I was just like, yeah, this is something I've wanted to talk about for a while. Mm-hmm. But let's go to Benji real quick. So, because you deal with a lot of trail maintenance, mm-hmm. and because you're the director of mountain sports at Giants Ridge, what's some of the biggest hurdles in like actually maintaining the trails?
Yeah, I mean, Giants Ridge is set up a little bit different than a lot of other mountain bike parks throughout the state and throughout the Midwest, but we have our own in-house paid staff that maintains our trails, and that was something that we set out very thoughtfully when we built out the park. And Giants Ridge came on about the same time as Redhead. I think we broke ground maybe a year before we did at Redhead, mm-hmm. at the Ridge. But all of these projects kind of happened at the same time, or closely related anyways. But anyways, we knew that to be a successful, pay-to-ride bike park, we were going to have to employ our own staff, because we didn't feel that the IROC, the bike club, which Pete and I were, both heavily involved in, had the resources to adequately maintain a lift-served bike park. And so we've taken the kind of pay-to-play and the paid trail maintenance avenue or direction, however you want to call it, very intentionally from the get-go. What that has allowed us to do is keep a fairly consistent project, or not necessarily project, fairly consistent product, kind of regardless of the weather. There's some downsides to that too, where we do have a big storm come in. We don't necessarily have the backing of a big crew of volunteers that can rally behind and clean up the park. So sometimes those bigger storms maybe are a little more impactful to us than they can be in other certain situations. But certainly maintenance is a major undertaking of any bike park, but especially lift served, because people are taking so many more laps. They're taking they're putting so many more miles on the trails that the trails are taking more abuse, which means more maintenance. So it's kind of a revolving cycle. But
constantly cleaning up the same thing.
Yeah, it's also critical though to the success of a park, whether it's Redhead or the Ridge. If you don't have well taken care of trails, people don't want to ride them. So it's integral to running a successful park.
And I'll go back to the volunteer, like IROC and all of them. I think that's really interesting because you have the crew, but Redhead is maintained mainly by volunteers a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's what Iron Range Off-Road Cyclists has kind of signed up for, is to be the primary volunteer maintenance organization. And the city is also contributing to that. In fact, this summer, they had 2 summer employees who helped with weed whacking. The city Parks and Recs and Trails Director directs a lot of those activities. So it's a partnership, and the Discovery Center takes care of the trailhead amenities, parking lot, and changing the garbages and things like that. But as far as work out there on the trails, yeah, that's an IROC thing. And this year we rolled out a new approach to that, the Adopt a Trail program. So it's kind of like Adopt a Highway, where you can pick a section, and our goal was pick your favorite trail, and as you ride onto it, just like Adopt a Highway, it says this section of trail adopted by XYZ, and it recognizes those volunteers, and it also stimulates some accountability. Like you can kind of rib your buddy, hey, I was on your trail, it looks like you need a weed whack out there now.
Yeah, it's that name claim. So both of you guys have ridden on the Redhead, so what's your favorite trail? And you've worked on the Redhead together too.
Go first, Benji.
I still think my favorite trail is Fractured Falls. I hope I didn't steal yours, but
I've got many.
Okay, it's a really fun downhill down into the trail. You're kind of in like a little mini canyon, and you come over. I mean, it's not really a waterfall, but it's water falling down a cliff, so I guess it's a waterfall. Yeah. And you go over the waterfall. Yeah, exactly. We got to be a little creative up in northern Minnesota. We don't have quite as many to choose from as other places, but yeah. So you go over the waterfall, and then it's probably the most challenging climb out of the whole trail system, and just that climb up and the descent down into that little mini canyon. It's just so scenic back in there. I think it's the epitome of Redhead.
I was just out there this morning, and what I love about Fractured Falls is when you're at the top of Redhead, we aren't too far from the highway. You can hear highway noises. And as you descend down into the canyon, they just disappear. And all you can hear is birds, the running water. It's just fantastic, kind of an immersive experience. So I love Fractured Falls too, but since Benji took that, I'll say the Zen Trail. The flow of Zen is just out of this world. It's a climb, so the climb up is fun because it's kind of, a rolling climb. And then you get to the top, and the last half, you just roll down these rollers, these little berms, switch berms, and then the last 2 drops are just, the bottom drops out kind of fast in a very safe way. So it's steep, but then you feel like you can recover very well. And there are 2 of those little whoop-de-woos right at the end. And when you get done, you just feel like, oh, how can I get back up there again to ride this thing?
Yeah, that's the cool thing about that trail is it's one that you could and do lap a couple times when you're out here like, well, that was fun and it wasn't that awful long. I'm just going to do it again.
Right.
Yeah, because that was my experience, because I've only ridden the Redhead once, and I was like, you know what, I got this. I hadn't biked in years, and yeah, I just got I just got eaten alive. I fell so many times. But I have hiked it, and I really like I think it's called the rock garden. Yeah, that really high rock, and you can.
Oh, a secret garden?
Secret
Yeah.
garden, yeah. No, I love that.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Oh, it is cool.
Yeah, and Secret Garden is unique because it's a experience and it's a landscape that you don't typically see in northern Minnesota. It's very reminiscent of like the Slick Rock in Moab, or something that you would typically see more out west, and I think that's part of what makes Redhead so unique too.
That's one of the comments we receive from users, is that Redhead has a little bit of everything. It's not one experience, it's got multiple experiences within the park, and that's one of the things that draws people back here.
Yeah, no, and it's beautiful to look at all year round too. And then talking about like trails and how I'm terrible at them. So I have gone on the gravity trails at Giants Ridge, the straight down, and I was like, yeah, it's actually kind of fun because I don't have to climb up. And you guys have classes over there. What is something that like you would say is one of the bigger hurdles for people who are learning how to mountain bike?
Well, I mean, I think depending on who you are, there's different hurdles. The first and foremost, it could be just having the right gear, which both Giants Ridge and Redhead have now. Redhead here, there's 30 West Bike Shop right at the Discovery Center that helps get you outfitted on the right gear. At the Ridge, we have our own internal bike shop that can help outfit you for your day. So that's the first hurdle, is having the right gear, because the bike that you have sitting in your garage for the last 20 years, while it might get you down a trail or through a trail, it's not necessarily going to be the most enjoyable or the best suited for the terrain, particularly at either trail system. I mean, if you're on the wrong bike, it's going to be a rough time at either Redhead or Giants Ridge. But so then the next hurdle, can be actually knowing the skills and having the skills to tackle the obstacles you find out on the trail. Like, I grew up from a very young age mountain biking, so I've kind of like developed those skills as I grew up. But like my wife, who's just gotten into mountain biking more recently, she's always known how to ride a bike, but there's some very specific, unique skills to cornering, to braking, that are unique in mountain biking. And so that's at the Ridge where our lesson program really comes in. We have lessons, we have camps for kids, we have women-specific programs, we have mixed gender camps for all ages, just helping teach those basic fundamental skills of cornering and braking and trail scanning. And it's really critical to your success as a biker to know some of those skills, because even though you can maybe make your way down the trail without knowing those skills, you're going to have a lot more fun. It's going to be a lot more enjoyable. Your risk of injury is going to go down having those skills. So those are really kind of some of the barriers. But what we try to do at the Ridge is set our guests up for success in those avenues, whether it's a private lesson, a camp, having the right rental gear, so that if you come to Giants Ridge and you want to try mountain biking for the first time, you're going to be successful and hopefully enjoy it.
Yeah.
One of the things I was going to mention, Caesar, in terms of skill building, Redhead Mountain Bike Park successfully was awarded about $1.66 million more from LCCMR, and one of those investments that LCCMR will help fund is a skills track, and also we're looking at a paved pump track, and that's all for providing people a safe opportunity to build the skills for the obstacles you'll encounter later on in the trail, so that you can grow confidence to the point where, okay, now I'm ready to try that feature. And that's
what I need.
That's one of the fun things, is that these trails have difficult features, and there's always something you can step up to. There's one more step you can take, because it provides that range of experience, and you're always going to have an opportunity to challenge yourself at Giants Ridge or at Redhead.
Yeah, and I remember when I heard about the pump track, I was like, I have no idea what that is. It's so you can essentially, you don't even have to pedal, like you just kind of like, you pump the bike and you can just go around the whole course like that, right?
Yeah, you start on a upper platform so that you have a little bit of gravity going in your favor. Roll down, and then you pump the suspension on your bike to roll over the features and through the berms and things like that. At some point, you have to pedal, to just get around and get back up on the platform, but that is the intent. And it helps you build that skill of being comfortable going into a berm, that you can trust the berm and kind of lean into it a little bit. And you
trust your bike too.
Yeah, trust your bike too. So you go around and around and around, maybe 10, 15, 20 times, and you feel more and more comfortable on that berm. You can ride a little bit higher up. You can shift your weight a little more in, and it helps you build that skill that you're going to need down the trail system somewhere.
Yeah, I'm probably going to be on that. I have a lot of skill building that I need to do.
Oh, we all do. We all do.
And the other cool thing about a pump track is, they're typically built right by the trailhead, and you go to any mountain bike trail system that has them, and the kids get out of the car and they go straight there, and sometimes with the pump track is enough entertainment for the kids in and of itself. You don't even have to go out onto the trails. So it's a really, fun way to bring some visual interest to a trailhead, but also, it's endless fun for kids to hang out, and it's just something that's really going to enhance.
Yeah, probably a good warm up too. So just
Totally.
hop on the pump track and then just jet right down onto the trail.
Mountain bikers are notoriously late showing up for their friends, and so it gives you something to do while you're waiting for your buddy who's going to be 10, 15, 20 minutes late.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, just kind of hang out. If they're late, whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
I was only 5 minutes late.
Yeah, so like true to form.
Right?
So when you first thought about the Redhead, because you were like the visionary behind it, essentially. As an environmental engineer, what made you say that should be a mountain bike park?
Well, I am an environmental engineer, but it was the mountain biker in me that had that thought, first of all. And it doesn't take, I said this for the movie that we were featured in, Bike Town. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at, the terrain on the Iron Range, where we've got these high man-made mountains and beautiful water-filled pits, and just think, I want to ride that. I want to hike that. I want to get back and experience that outdoor beauty. Really, it's the beauty of the reclaimed mine landscape, and so that's the gut instinct. It's like, I want to get out there and experience it, and then the environmental engineer comes in and says, okay, well, how can we make that possible? How can we design this park in a safe way? How do we get the public engaged? That sort of thing. So yeah, more of a gut instinct as just an outdoor enthusiast that you look at it and say, I want to get out there.
So you were mountain biking like long before like any of this.
Oh yeah, I started in the late '80s, I guess. Yeah, dating myself now, but.
And we're talking about when you say pit too. Like I've had a lot of people who've come to visit, and they hear like, oh, it's an old mine. Like, is that safe? And I know the answer to that. Like, it's obviously safe. But can you explain like the process that goes into it, and like the water and just the leftover area of the mine?
Sure. Yeah. So if you haven't been up to the Mesabi Iron Range, we've got over 400 open mine pits. 1,400 stockpiles of rock or overburden material, and that's what creates the undulating terrain of the Mesabi Iron Range. So if you're driving down Highway 169 and it looks like mountains and lakes, those were created by human activity over the course of the last 120, 130 years of mining activity up here. So that was our landscape, and it's been reclaimed by both man's activities and human activities and natural activities to somewhat get stabilized. We see water, groundwater floods back into these pits after they're no longer being dewatered. Birch forests and aspen and pines grow up on the side slopes. And so through those reclamation actions, a lot of these areas are stabilized. But we also want to be clear that we're warning people of the risks. You know, mountain biking and hiking, just like if you go to a national park, it's an inherently risky activity. You can get injured. People have been injured. We want to be sure everybody's cautious about that. Benji talks about the importance of equipment, safety equipment being the foremost important thing to have. You know, helmets, body protection if you need that, or if you feel like that'll make you more comfortable out there. So we try to construct the trails in ways that are sustainable. We followed sustainable design principles so that the trails themselves are placed in a manner that they're less likely to erode, they're better able to be maintained and stabilized over time. You do sometimes ride close to the edge of the pit. That's part of the experience, is to get that thrill of being close to an exposed zone. But we often try to design that in a way so that it's a controlled exposure, so that if, for example, you were to tumble off your bike, there's a spill zone or something like that. So a lot of people, with biking, there are some like nicks and breaks types of injuries that just occur with biking, whether you're in a mine pit or on any other mountain bike trail or paved trail. But safety is foremost in the minds of people who put the trail together, and then the people who are trying to maintain the trail. And we want all users to be aware of that as they're going into the trail system. So you'll see a big sign that says, this is the code of conduct that we would expect for mountain bikers. There's a little bit of trail etiquette in there, but a lot of it is about safety, riding within your ability levels, checking things out before you ride off of features, being aware that, this is an activity that is risky, but that's part of the thrill of getting out there.
It's inherently dangerous.
It's,
you're just riding out in the wild. So.
Right, yeah, exactly. So it comes with risks, but we try to manage those risks.
So for you, because you deal with a lot of trail maintenance, going forward, how frequently do you need to be upkeeping it?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the trail, and it depends on the weather conditions that have just recently happened. Certain trails on our cross-country trail system at Giants Ridge, we don't have to do a whole lot to, other than make sure that there's no trees down, or that no trees have blown down since the last time we were on it. There's the thing to remember about lift-served bike trails is the features are a lot more built out. They're a lot more developed than they are in a cross-country trail system. So because of that, there are features that we have to maintain, not necessarily daily, but sometimes weekly, or certainly more frequently, especially if a storm rolls through. So our crew is out there 40 hours a week maintaining some trail at Giants Ridge. Monday they work 10-hour days, but Monday through Thursday, every single day, all summer long. And then we also have trail crews on through our operational days on the weekend that are there to clean up the trees that blow down overnight, to fix any minor issues that might have happened from the little thunderstorm that rolled through the night before. So it's not quite 24/7 like maintaining a ski hill is, like we do in the winter, but it's during the summer operational months, we've got somebody 7 days a week working on our trails in some way, shape, or form. The bulk of that maintenance happening during the week, but it's a fairly intensive program to maintain a bike park. No different than it is here at Redhead. The difference at a volunteer-based location is it's not as prescribed and it's not as scheduled, perhaps. Like, you might come out here at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday and there's volunteers working, or you might show up at noon on a Wednesday and there's also volunteers working. It just depends. it's when it's volunteer driven, people are just coming and they're fitting it in when they have time, whereas us with paid staff, it's it's scheduled.
Yeah.
We've got a operations, maintenance, and risk management plan that's written for Redhead. That's part of managing the risk and then also directing people on how to keep it up. One of the things I find that, I don't know if you'd agree with this, Benji, but I've traveled, mountain bikers like to travel and ride other places. I've ridden in Arizona, Utah, California, other places. And one of the things that's great about here in Northeast Minnesota is that our trails are purpose built. They aren't covering a wide range of user groups. They're purpose built for mountain biking, and they're really well maintained. It's not just use it if you want to use it, and there aren't maintenance.
Yeah, you walked into it with a goal, like, because you already been on some trails. So
Right,
we
exactly.
can make it this.
Yeah.
This is how we can make it.
And I think that was something unique that we were intentional about when we built Redhead, when we built the Ridge, was knowing that maintenance is critical, because we weren't the first place to build a mountain bike park. We were able to learn from other people and see the importance of not only building it but then also maintaining it. And so we came in knowing that it's just not just build it and forget it. Like it's build it and then take care of it forever so that people keep coming back, because it's not trails are never something that are for lack of a better term, set in stone, unless they are all stone. But they're always evolving, and because of that, they always need maintenance. They always need caretaking. And so, going into both of these projects, we knew that we were going to have to stay on top of that, so that because we wanted people to not only come once, but to come back over and over and over again. And that's how you provide a good product.
Yeah, and there's obviously a lot of love went into these projects, and they all happened, like you said earlier, around the same time period. So that's kind of I think that's kind of interesting too. So mountain bikers, you said they like to travel. They don't have to stop at just one mountain bike park. They can go to one, and then there's another one down the road, and then another one, because they're all just kind of popping up around here.
That was very much on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Tioga, Redhead, and Giants Ridge were built at the same time. I want to say a shout out to the IRRR and the board who voted to approve $4.95 million all at once to build out the three parks simultaneously. There were some other matching funds available from other sources, but intentionally, the IRRR and the people who were working on these projects said, we don't want to trickle onto the mountain biking scene, we want to splash onto the scene. And so
They did.
in the course of just a few short years, we went from virtually 0 miles of mountain biking to over 75 miles of world-class mountain biking here on the Iron Range. We are a national and international destination, and I know that because I meet the people who travel here to visit us. Mm-hmm. That was very much on purpose that we built it that way, and so we're in the middle of a constellation of great mountain biking up here. Not only the three trails that we mentioned, but Cuyuna, Duluth, the North Shore, Canva trails, Copper Harbor, around Lake Superior and the upper Midwest. We aren't flyover country anymore. We're
right through.
We're destination for mountain biking up here. Yeah. And hiking. A lot of people love to hike these trails, and we see a lot of hikers out there.
Especially around this time of year, kind of fall weather.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just waiting for those colors. But
Mm-hmm.
so when you see a mine pit now, and I hate that we use the word pit, it just sounds so bad. But when you see a mine pit now, do you see the potential for it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's one of the potentially mind-changing opportunities that we have here at Redhead, is that people who can come here and experience this as what they may have had a preconception about what terrain would look like or could be reclaimed to after mining. And so when you actually get down in there and you get to experience it yourself, the waterfall and the birch forest and the color of the water in the mine pit, you start to realize like, oh, this is part of a circular economy, that we can bring these things back into productive use. And it really opens your eyes and it opens your minds to the possibility of what post-industrial property can be repurposed into.
Yeah, and it looks great. So I do the same thing. Like I look at like mining pits when I'm like just driving down the highway, and I'm just like, that could be a park one day.
Yeah.
And that'd be really cool. That'd be filled with water, people just kayaking down there. But
Yeah, and I think that's, it's been told in other mediums before, but I mean, that is one of the most unique aspects of the Redhead project. Is to build Redhead, we had to, Pete alluded to it earlier, but like to build it, we had to get a state law changed. And what changing that state law has done is allowed other mine pit areas, other former mineland areas, to have the potential to become parks, because prior to this law getting changed, it was off limits, which is just, it's crazy to think that, but like prior to Redhead, you were not legally allowed to go beyond the fence. It was off limits to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get that changed? That had to have been like a lot of work.
Yeah, it was actually the spearhead of the change was conducted by the St. Louis County mine inspectors. They were the ones who were enforced with or charged with enforcing the law for mine pit fencing, and they recognized this as a good project, but to make it legally feasible, they needed to write in some exclusions to the mine pit fencing rule, recognizing that there would be ways that we could protect the public and warn the public and things like that and do it in a safe manner, because some of these other mountain bike parks had come online and it was being proven that it could be done. So they were the ones who really spearheaded it, and it took a few tries at the legislature to get it, and along with those tries were people in the mining industry coming on board and supporting the project. They said, yeah, now we know what you're going for here. We think you can do it. And so I'm not shy about saying Redhead was a bit of an experiment. It still is an experiment. Like we're trying to prove if it can be done and if it can be done safely. So far, so good. 4 years in. Now,
Has it been 4 years already?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Since the soft opening. And now we're hosting the state mountain biking meet every other year. So I like to say what the XL Energy Center is to hockey, Redhead is to mountain biking. This is where people come to do their the final statewide high school meet every other year. They were here last fall, and it was just 4,000 people coming to town.
And it was like raining and stuff too. I remember that.
Snowing.
It was snowing. I was freezing. I was trying to catch them on the trails.
Yeah. So true to Minnesota form, it snowed, mid-October. And, of course, the people out on the trails were a little concerned, well, how's this going to come off? And then the director of the overall program said, oh, it was epic. It was like the best
It was so cool.
we've ever had. It's kind of like the Mud Bowl was for football. Yeah. It was the equivalent.
I loved it. Everyone just like coming into the finish line, just like covered in mud, and they were just like really happy.
Oh yeah, the pictures are just epic. You can't get better pictures than the ones that happened last year at the state meet.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that again. It'll be fun. And Giants Ridge, like you guys have a lot of races and stuff too. Do you want to mention some of the stuff that's going to be coming up next summer?
Yeah, it's September right now when we're recording this, so a lot of our next summer plans are still in the works. But we always want to do a good job putting on what we currently do, but always trying to raise the bar a little bit. So we're still evaluating our plans for next year. So I can't commit to anything yet, but we're hoping to expand on what we currently do. Giants Ridge is is a favorite place for many people in Minnesota to come mountain biking, and we want to just continue to build off of that and make it better. So I can't give any hard details, but hopefully we'll be good improvements for next year.
Well, you have a long tradition of hosting mountain biking races there. The grind has been going on for how many years?
Yeah, the grind started back in, I think it was 2016. And actually, if you go back to the 90s, the Chequamegon mountain bike race, which is one of the oldest mountain bike races in the Midwest, and the Giants Ridge Mountain Bike Festival started the same year. And there's a lot of carryover from that original course that we still use in the grind, which is kind of neat. But Giants Ridge's mountain biking history goes, way back before my time and our current trail system. But we have a long history of promoting mountain biking and putting on events.
Have you rode on Giants Ridge before?
Yes.
You have. What's your favorite trail on there?
I really like, what is it called? Featherleys?
Featherleys.
Featherleys, yeah. That's, so I don't go hucking off of Goliath.
I've seen that one.
Even though I've been riding forever, I am not anything more than an intermediate level mountain biker. And so just to see people launch off of that and the skill that's involved, I find phenomenal. But I have a lot of fun on the intermediate and even the beginning level trails like Leapfrog and things like that. Those are just fun because you can try different permutations on the way down. And it's just like a different experience every time. And then you again, same kind of thing. Like you ride it once and then you think, oh, maybe next time I could take this route. And then you take the second route and, it feels like you're accomplishing something. You're building your skills as you're going.
Yeah, because I've only done the green trails, but you were president of IROC for a number of years, so you probably can go on some expert level courses.
Well, the funny thing is to be the president of the bike club, there's no riding test, there's no there's no anything test. If you're willing to do it, you probably have the opportunity to be the president of a bike club somewhere in your backyard. So just a plug out there to anyone who wants to be a bike
any aspiring
club.
presidents. Yes.
Yeah.
Come forward.
There's no ride test. There's none of that. But no, I have ridden around the country both for work and for fun. But kind of similar to Pete, I don't know that I would really classify myself as anything much above intermediate. I can ride every trail at the Ridge, but not necessarily the way it was intended to be ridden. I don't get massive air and I don't, huck cliffs or anything like that. So, similar to Pete, some of my favorite trails at the Ridge are blue. I think my all-time favorite still is Leapfrog, and that was the first trail we ever built. But it's fun, it's fast, it's flowing. There's lots of, like Pete was saying, lots of different B-lines to play with and intermix. But a new favorite of mine, I don't think it's replaced Leapfrog, but it's kind of up there. We rebuilt a trail we call Miner's Mile this year, and so that's kind of maybe my summer of 23 favorite. If we're still talking, playlist. Miner's Mile is my go-to on the playlist this year.
Oh, why is that one your favorite now?
It's rebuilt. And the crew that we had rebuild it did a really great job. Its overall net effect is downhill. It's technically a cross-country trail, but its overall, elevation change if you ride it north to south is downhill, and it's long and it's flowy, and it just keeps going. It's a mile long of a gentle downhill grade, and so it's just a blast to ride. And so you can take the lift up, come down the rivets, and peel over onto that, and then come back on Norway. It's just a really fun, 45-minute adventure, give or take whatever it takes. But it's a fun adventure out in the woods. You're not constantly lapping the same trail or the same few trails. It's like a nice way to break up your ride out at the Ridge and just be out in the woods for a little bit longer without a ridiculous amount of pedaling. It's still not quite as much pedaling as you would do here at Redhead. It's still, take the lift up, ride out there, come back. yeah, it's just a fun trail.
Yeah, it's kind of like an easy little roller coaster.
Yeah, totally.
That's kind of the experience I had. Like, I think I went on, I want to say it's Leapfrog. I think that's the one I went on. But yeah, it was just like straight downhill, like just winding. And I was like, wow, that was like really fun. I can go again.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I know I was initially like really scared when I heard gravity trails. I was like, that sounds terrifying. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you know, it's a double-edged sword, right? Like, some people think gravity sounds terrifying, and then other people think lift served sounds super easy, and reality is probably somewhere in between there, right? And so that's kind of like what I was alluding to when I was talking about having the right bike and the right, you know, Pete talked about safety gear and lessons. Like, some people get lulled into a false sense of safety with lift serve biking because they're like, well, it's easier, I don't have to pedal. It's like, yeah, it's easier that you don't have to pedal, but you still need those riding skills because you're probably going a little higher speed, so you're going to need better braking skills. And the features are bigger, so it's your opportunity to get in trouble are more enhanced too. So it's more approachable in some ways because you don't have to have the cardio to back you up. But you can also get yourself into trouble if you don't have some of those basic riding skills, and you know, to be able to manage your speed on a consistent downhill grade. If you're not comfortable with the brakes, it's that much easier to go over the handlebars and get yourself into trouble. So it's a double-edged sword. You get, it opens or it alleviates some barriers, but it creates other ones. So, you know, as operators at a pay-to-ride facility in particular, we really do our best to try and inform our guests of that and educate them, again, so that they can have a good experience when they show up, because we want people to come back. We don't want them to come and be like, oh, that was terrifying, fill in the blank horror story, I'm never coming back. That's not what we want. We want people to come and have a good experience, and we try and do our best to prepare people so that they can be successful.
Yeah, exactly.
It's nice to have the lift served option in the mix for Northeast Minnesota because it's a different experience. You know, if you're doing 2 days of cardio cranking, maybe you're ready for a lift ride to the top of the hill, and then you can still get the thrill on the way down. So it's just a really nice complement to what else we have going on in the region.
Yeah, going back to like how like everything was kind of built at the same time, purposefully. Like, hey, like you can come here and it's like it's gonna be a challenge, and you're gonna work for it, and it's gonna be fun. And then you can come here and just go to the top and then ride down. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's just kind of an experience for everybody, but you got to be safe about it, obviously.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, it's a great sport, but it always pays to know what you're getting into, ahead of time, and that's why we offer lessons.
Yeah. And then, like a big question for both of you guys, because you were both involved in creating the Redhead. Like, what did that project mean to you guys personally? Because I know it was like a huge project, and you definitely achieved it. Like, you made something really cool.
You want to go first? Okay. I mean, personally, and Pete and I were both involved in Giants Ridge too. That wasn't just me. We were both heavily involved in both these projects. Oh. I think building Redhead really struck home for me. It was a younger family in the area, and I think it was probably the summer of the soft opening, and I told people about, Redhead's open, you got to go check it out. And I saw that family a few months later, and they said, like, wow, that is incredible, and said thank you, which, whether that's warranted or not. I mean, Redhead wasn't just me, it wasn't just Pete, it was a bunch of people who made it happen. So appreciated the thanks, but it wasn't just due to me. But they said it's things like that make us want to live in this area and keep living here. And I mean, that's what it's all about. It's about improving our own backyard. And so, that's what all of these trail systems have meant to me, and just any chance I get that I'm driving through by Waback, I'm driving through Chisholm, and I see cars with bikes on the back of them, gives us a little sense of accomplishment that, you know, our vision that we had 10 years ago when we were riding on, you know, hand-built trails scratched into the woods on, you know, a little parcel of land that, you know, the city of city of Hibbing let us use, or the U.S. Forest Service let us use, to now, you know, it was our vision coming to life. So yeah, it's a pretty cool thing to have been a part of.
Yeah, and I definitely like when you say like the bikes on the back of the cars going down the highway. Like, I'm not even from the area, but like it's been exciting to be involved with it. And I'll see people like with the bikes coming, like going towards the cities, and they have like the red dust on it. And I'm just like, hey, like I see you, like that's cool. I love it.
I've heard that that's a status symbol now. You go back to the Twin Cities and you don't wash your bike for a few days, so everybody can see, oh, they've been up to the range. We know where they went. This is where the
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how about you? How did it feel?
Incredible, and just like intensely gratifying, because it wasn't easy, and that's part of the reason why it felt like at times maybe the project wasn't going to succeed. I talk about that pretty openly in the book. There were many times when it felt like, oh, now this is the end, but there's something about the Iron Range spirit that's about perseverance. Like, keep trying, keep going, and eventually that succeeded to the point where when we actually started building trails, I couldn't quite believe it until I couldn't even quite get excited at
Just
first.
waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, that was sort of the feeling. But then once the first mile was on the ground and we got out there, that's when the excitement started to set in. And one of the things that blew my mind is within, I want to say it was 3 or 4 weeks of Redhead's soft opening, somebody forwarded me a foreign language YouTube video of somebody at Redhead navigating the trail and describing what they were riding. And I thought, so we've set out to make our own quality of life better and make the range a great place to live and visit. But it was like, that's what drove it home to me. We are a destination that people are willing to travel to because of the quality of the trails that we built up here. So that was one thing that just sticks in my memory. And another was I was on the trail and ran into a mountain biker from the Twin Cities, and he didn't know who I was, and we were just chatting. He said, well, where are you from? I said, I'm from Hibbing. And he said, oh, from the new mecca of mountain biking. And I said,
that had to have felt good.
Yeah, it really felt fantastic. I thought, and he said, how lucky you are to live here. And I thought, would they have said that 15 years ago? It was, it helped me realize the paradigm shifting opportunity that we had created through building these trails up here.
Yeah, it's a big thing. People are looking at this area in a completely different light. And we're getting like a lot of people up here who are appreciating like the work that you guys were involved in, and it's really cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I just, you mentioned the tough times when we were trying to get Redhead going, and I've been thinking back on that a lot recently, and I remember a few different times, because there were many years there where Pete would come in the spring to a board meeting for the bike club, and he would say, I think this is the year. I think this is the year that we're going to build Redhead. And at first we were all really excited. We're like, okay, this is the year. And then this would fall apart, or that would fall apart, or this would get in the way, or we'd have to find new land. And I mean, this went on for years. And there was one year, and I don't know if I've ever told Pete this, but I said to another one of our bike club members, I'm like, man, I love Pete, and he's a great guy, and his passion is incredible, but we just need to give up on Redhead, and we need to focus on the couple trail systems we've got and just do those really well. And like, if that happens someday, great, but that's too big for us. We can't do it. And to Pete's
That's
credit,
what a sane person would have said.
well, right, but to Pete's credit, he had faith in the vision and the dream, and I think we all did, but I think to a certain extent we thought it was too much of an undertaking and just wasn't realistic. And it's here today, and I'm so glad I was wrong. And I'm so glad that nobody listened to me when I said that. But yeah, I mean, it was no small undertaking.
Well, I talk about the community that grew up around Redhead, and we talk about maintenance, and that's part of what these trails also do, is they build our community here. So when IROC started, we were just a disparate group of, like, somebody liked mountain biking here in this little town and somebody else liked it over there, and finally we figured out, like, oh, we should probably form a club and, you know, advocate for it together. And people at the city offices and people at the IRRR and people at the Discovery Center, like, all got on board with that vision, and now we are a community that rallies around keeping these trails, maintaining these trails, raising money to do expansions on our trails. So that's been extremely rewarding too, is that it provides that sense of community for us up here, that we're all pointed in the same direction and we're making things happen out there on the landscape.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I think is kind of like really incredible about it, the amount of volunteer work that goes into it to maintain the trails. And even with Giants Ridge, like all the trails around here, everyone puts their best effort in to like keep them and make sure like they're in pristine condition. And that shows a lot of like community love towards it and understanding how important it is to our area. I think that's really cool.
And especially for, you know, the Iron Range isn't super populated like some other mountain bike hosting areas. So we rely a lot on our volunteers. If you're listening and you want to step up, we would welcome you with both arms, because it's just an incredible opportunity for us here, and I think people realize that this is part of our future, and they want to work toward building that future together.
Yeah, I agree. It's I think it's just going to keep on expanding, and I think more and more people are going to realize like what this place is becoming, and it's going to be really exciting like in the next few years. He told me, okay, so when you were building the park, and you were talking about like hurdles that you had to jump through, what were like some really big moments where you're just banging your head on a wall, like this is like the big ones that kind of held you back?
Well, the park where it's located today is not where it was originally located. So we moved from an original location in a different city to this location here today. And that was a bit of a challenge when, you know, you've put time and effort into physically designing a trail system, and that physical design work, because the location of the trail, you know, isn't valuable anymore. But what we came to realize with the opportunity of, I call it an opportunity now in retrospect, opportunity of relocating the park, is that we could employ some of the same design principles, but maybe in a spot that didn't have the same kinds of challenges. And so I actually think we landed in a better physical location with, you know, better, we did, yeah. Yeah, with better partnerships and overall a more fully baked idea by the time that we located Redhead where it is here now by the Discovery Center in Chisholm. That was one of those examples, coming up against the fact that the mine pit fencing legislation had to be changed, and then you say to yourself, what, we need to change the state law to make this project go forward? Like, for a volunteer bike club at the time, that seems like a pretty daunting task. Now, we weren't leading it, as I said. Our partners in government were leading that effort, but still it seemed like an insurmountable task at the time, that again speaks to the strength of the partnerships. Like, many people pulled for this project in many different roles and capacities that ultimately brought it to bear in the end.
Yeah, and you know, even just then getting all those things lined up, and then on top of that, getting the funding to line up at the same time, because while a lot of this work was going on, we didn't have guaranteed funding for the project. And, you know, that's what was so, and Pete alluded to it earlier, that's what was so unique and so special when this all happened, is that, you know, Giants Ridge, Redhead, and Tioga were all kind of doing their own thing, separate but sort of talking to each other, and it all was ready at about the same time. And then to have the vision of, you know, a number of people, one of whom most importantly was now late Commissioner Mark Phillips at the IRRR, to go out on a limb and fund this project. I mean, it was going out on a limb at that time. I mean, the amount of money that, you know, the agency was willing to back behind this project, again, all of that coming together, it still seems kind of amazing that it all happened. You know, there were lots of things like that.
It seemed like at the time we were just, you know, putting one step in front of the other. What's the next obstacle? What's the next obstacle? What's the next obstacle? But it was after the nearly $5 million was awarded that the next day we were getting called from Twin Cities newspapers, and
then it was just like a rocket ship.
and that's when one of those things where it settles in. Oh, wait, this is sort of a big deal, because people were paying attention, and almost through reflection of what you hear through the back channels. You know, one of my colleagues called me at work. He said, "Oh, I heard your voice on Minnesota Public Radio when I was driving into work." I said, "What?" But that was just covering. They were covering the landmark decision made by the IRRR to award $5 million toward these recreational projects, which hadn't been done at that scale before, and so that's why it was sort of a big deal.
Who would you say were your biggest allies in getting everything together?
Well, Benji mentioned Mark Phillips as sort of the spearhead leader for that. Jim Plummer was with us the whole time for all these projects simultaneously, still a huge advocate for it. The leadership at the city of Chisholm, we talk about Tioga, that's the city of Cohasset. People at the city of Biwabik now are really interested in helping expand the trail opportunities there and connecting into Giants Ridge. All the leaders at IROC, the various people in positions who, like Benji said, it just takes somebody stepping forward and saying, yeah, I'm going to fill that role. I'll do my best for the year. I might not be an expert level rider or whatever, but I'm willing to do my part. And you know, Luther Kemp was the president at the time of IROC, and you know, Steve Cook. I mean, like the name, I could just drop names for like the next 5 minutes here, and
fair enough. Yeah, there's a lot of people involved.
Yeah,
There's a lot of people who did their part, whatever that was,
Yeah.
and that's what made it happen. But yeah, I mean, it was, if you added it all up, it was probably 100 people who have helped out in some way, shape, or form over the years.
Yeah, St. Louis County. I haven't mentioned St. Louis County, but they were important to back this, and then people in the mining industry supporting the change to the law, which, you know, was new to them that they'd been complying with before. So yeah, so many people in so many different capacities that ultimately came on board with it.
So what do you think is next? Like, what do you think is needed to like help this grow more? And what would you like to see insofar as like the mountain bike community on the Iron Range?
Do you have an answer at the tip of your tongue?
Well,
Benji?
yeah, I mean,
I just kind of like threw that one at you guys.
I think the stuff that's on our horizon on the range right now, we've kind of alluded to a little bit. You know, Redhead just got awarded some more money this year, and then Pete alluded to the city of Biwabik taking a real serious interest in building out a trail system that connects Biwabik to Giants Ridge. And you know, off the top of my head, those are the two biggest things that are out there. I think Biwabik is really poised to be successful and in a unique way to be tied to the lift-served mountain biking via a cross-country trail network, and have a cross-country trail network literally right out the back door of the town of Iwabik, I think is going to be huge if we can get that through. We're still in the fairly early stages of that process, but I think that's a real big possibility in the next 10 years that could be another next big thing. And I don't know if you want to talk more about, the Redhead 2.0 or 3.0, whatever number we're on here now. But
Yeah, well, so the LCCMR grant would support additional trail amenities, up to 12 miles of additional trail, the pump track, the skills park that we're talking about. But then there are matching funds that are potentially going to be available to allow the park boundaries to expand and improve connections into town. Other funding sources that are being looked at now would be Greater Minnesota Parks and Trails Commission regional designation. That would allow for expansion to other parts around the area, maybe connections to other communities. So that's part of
That's exciting.
Redhead's immediate future, and we talked about other cities on the Iron Range. Other cities are really giving this a hard look, and some of them are actually taking action steps now to evaluate opportunities to build complementary amenities in their communities so that we can build on the recreation tourist destination reputation that we've gotten here, and try to capture more of that, and hopefully then that leads to more resident attraction and recruitment for our area too. Like it can snowball, and we've seen that happen in other small communities too. Even Moab was a mining community to begin with, and so was Park City, Utah. So it's an opportunity for us to look forward and say, well, what can we do with the momentum that we've already gotten?
Yeah, and that's one of the really cool things about it. Like, you can see the success and then just like, hey, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to like build on it. We're going to build amenities to it, and it just gets bigger and bigger because it snowballs.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a entire destination. It's not just like one or two spots.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, we see that. I mean, Crosby, Ironton, they've been open longer than we have for sure, and just to see the way that those communities have embraced the trail system, and then the commercial developments that come along with it, that's a model for us and a compliment for us. Like we are part of that. If you've heard, well, you're part of the Ride the Range campaign, right? So we're jointly advertising our 4 trail systems as a place that is really one destination that you can travel up to and experience a different trail every day. And so we're happy to be part of it, and then we're seeing at places like Cuyuna, those transformations are already occurring. Okay,
so in your book, can you tell me a little bit about what you discuss in there?
Sure. So the book, actually, I'll tell you the story about how the book came about.
Okay.
Redhead was in its final stages. This was 2019, and it was finally becoming clear that this was going to cross the finish line, and we were going to be able to open this bike park. So I'm a consummate note taker, so I had literally like a box full of files and all sorts of computer files and things like that of the blow-by-blow detail of how Redhead came to be from its original inception all the way through its soft opening. And because of the challenge involved that we all participated in, some people said, oh, well, you should write the story of Redhead now, because it was a challenge to bring it about, and other people might learn from it. I said, oh, yeah, well, whatever, And then small town being a small town, or, rumor mills, you start to hear things that weren't, quite factually correct. And I thought, okay, I should set the record straight, just so everybody knows, what happened and how this came about, and to give credit where credit is due, because so many people, played an important role in this. And then as I began to contemplate that story of telling, the Redhead story, to understand, how important it was to change the mine pit fencing legislation, you have to kind of go back to 1950. Well, why do we have these mine pit fencing laws in the first place? And then to understand, well, why do we have these man-made canyons and mountains? You have to go back to 1905 and 1910 when steam shovel mining, transformed this part of the country. And so I realized, this is a history book. It's so I thought, okay, well, I had a friend who did some contract work for the Minnesota Historical Society Press, and I thought I would call down there and they would say, no, we aren't interested. And then I'd say, well, okay, at least I tried. I can live knowing that I put myself out there. To the contrary, they thought it was a fantastic history of what people were doing with the landscape up here, especially in a way that was not very well understood. That mine land can be transformed and repurposed into something valuable today. And so they said, yeah, we'd love to tell that story. And so 4 years later, it was my COVID project, writing this book, in the early morning hours or the evening hours or the weekends to try to document that story. And so, again, the book is a story like Redhead, where many people came together to help tell the story. I talk about the Laurentian Vision Partnership and how the University of Minnesota landscape architects donated so much of their time to help envision what the future of the Iron Range could look like. And that was started by people from U.S. Steel here that wanted to help create a legacy asset out of the mined lands. And so all of these were important parts of the story, and many of those people made themselves available for interviews, and they participated in the review of the book and things like that. So it was just another group project like Redhead that, I happen to have a big role on, but it was really a community project that helped bring it about. And so the book exists out there today. If you're interested in creating a mountain bike park in your little town and you don't know where to start,
there's plenty of space around here. I probably could.
Right. You can pick up the book, and it's kind of a recipe for you how it can be done.
And like you said too, it's like you're pretty much diving into history too, and just everything that you guys did for the Redhead. It's kind of like the end of that history. So you have the full life cycle of the mining pits and like how they came to be, and then reclaiming them, and then just kind of full circle.
Exactly. Yeah. It's and there are really recognizing the beginning of the story is super important too, like how vital the iron supply from the Iron Range was to building this country and winning the world wars and putting up the skyscrapers in New York. Like all that happened because of the iron that was mined here. So that's an important part of the story. But then to go all the way around the life cycle to say, well, now we're repurposing that land for something else. And if mining comes back here and we need to move the trail somewhere else, we can do that, because there'll be maybe another part of the Iron Range where they're done mining for a while. And so we could put trails there for a while. And in that way, I think they're kind of symbiotic with one another.
Yeah. And just so much history and significance in like just one like area, like a mine pit.
Yeah. Oh,
that's a crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I try to tell that story in the book too, of the presidents of the United States who took account of the Iron Range and realized its importance. John F. Kennedy was in Hibbing giving a speech about, the Iron Range is the power of the nation, and things like that. So you know, it is. It's an important part of the country's history, what this region did, and the innovations that came out of this area. And now we're just trying to add to that story of innovation. Like we can do something now with this land that brings it back into productive use after mining or in between periods of active mining, even.
Yeah, after the iron's gone, it still maintains its significance.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
That's great. All right. So I think that's about all we got. So thanks for joining me today. It was really great meeting both of y'all. I was really excited to talk about this thing. Like, I really wanted to talk about the Redhead. I love it. So the next episode, we're going to be talking with the Iron Range Partnership for Sustainability in Marlies Riffle, and we're going to talk about sustainability projects on the range, their mission, and why it's important. So if you want to check out Pete Kero's book, check out the links below, and definitely check out Giants Ridge. Benji, you have a blog on Giants Ridge too?
I do.
Yep, so if you're going to be going on the trails, he can keep you updated on what's going on up there. So until next time.